I don't know about you guys, but I ain't never seen two pretty best friends. What's going on, everyone? It's Fuzzy. Welcome back to yet another MLB. Is this a recap? Can we call it the off-season recap? Because a bunch of stuff has happened the last week that I haven't talked about. We have a new manager for the Tigers. We have a new manager for the Red Sox. Both are cheaters that are given their jobs back. So what does that make a case for Pete Rose being reinstated? I think it should. There's no reason why AJ Hinch and Alex Cora should be allowed back in baseball, but Pete Rose, one of the best hitters of all time, is not allowed in the Hall of Fame. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about a trade rumor that actually seems pretty relevant. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's out there. Giancarlo Stanton to the Cubs in exchange for 3 different All-Stars. We'll talk about that in just a second. But without further ado, let's just do it. So it has been reported and confirmed that the disgraced former Astros manager AJ Hinch has inked a deal with the Detroit Tigers. Say what you want about the Tigers, how they've been a bum franchise for the last 7 to 8 years, and also say what you want about AJ Hinch, but the man knows what he's talking about in regards to managing and talking baseball. I fully expect the Tigers to not do a complete 180 turnaround in the next season or two, but in the next 3 to 5 years, I think that AJ Hinch is going to really do something special with that rotation, because they're going to have Spencer Turnbull, they're going to have Casey Mize, they're going to have Turkle Schoolball, I think that's his name, and then all of the other young prospects. They have Paredes at third base. I love Jamier Candelario. I think that AJ Hinch is going to do wonders with that young Tigers staff. I just don't know exactly when it's going to happen, and I want to ask you guys a question. Do you think that AJ Hinch should have been given a second opportunity, just like his boy Alex Cora? He goes back to the Red Sox. If you don't remember Alex Cora, he won a World Series with the Red Sox back in 2018 as they defeated Manny Machado and the LA Dodgers. He was given his job back. He was fired because of what happened down in Houston. It was kind of him, Carlos Beltran, and the rest of the Astros players coordinating a special attack against the rest of the league using trash cans. So AJ Hinch fired. Jeff Luhnow, I don't know how to say his name, the former GM for the Astros, he said that there is still some dirt on the Astros, so I'm excited to see what is going to come out soon in regards to that. So AJ Hinch back in baseball. We have Alex Cora back in baseball and managing the Boston Red Sox. 2 cheaters allowed back in. So what does that make for the former GM, Jeff? What does that make for cheaters like Pete Rose, who didn't necessarily cheat the game like the trash can using Astros did? I think that's worse. In my opinion, knowing what pitch is coming is worse than betting on your team to win every single game, because that's what Pete Rose says. He never bet on his team to lose. He just said, we're going to win every single game. You just can't bet on baseball. You cannot do that. So Pete Rose has been banished. He tried to get reinstated, and unfortunately, Robert Manfred said, no, that is not going to happen. So with these new hires, it just brought up the old question of, should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? Should guys like Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens be getting more votes, considering what's happening in the current landscape with AJ Hinch and Alex Cora? I do think that both of these moves are fantastic in regards to a baseball perspective. I think AJ Hinch is very underrated. Yes, he was thrown under the bus. Yes, he did not stop the trash can banging, but he got the Astros to a few World Series. He won one, so I do think that he is going to have a really good time down in Detroit, because they have a young crop of young prospects that are actually going to perform pretty well going forward, at least in my opinion. Don't forget the guy that they just drafted #1 overall. His name is escaping me. Spencer, I think that's his name. He's going to be legit. Spencer Torkelson, the man might be the next JD Martinez, but can actually field his position. And then Alex Cora, I think that he's going to be back on track with the rest of the Red Sox players coming back from injury. You're going to have Chris Sale back. Hopefully, you're going to have Eduardo Rodriguez. I know that he was suffering from a heart condition that was caused by COVID-19, so hopefully he comes back and he's healthy. I think the Red Sox are going to be a whole lot better in 2021. Now what we're going to do is move on to the trade rumors surrounding Giancarlo Stanton and his massive contract. He chose not to opt out, and I don't blame him, because I think the landscape of free agents is going to be not very good. I think that Trevor Bauer is going to get his money, but not as much as that he was hoping for, because the teams and all of Major League Baseball are almost $9 billion in debt. So they're trying to cut payroll. They're trying to do everything that they can to ensure that they have a ton of money left over after this season. So if you don't remember, Jacoby Ellsbury's contract, it did not end when they released him in 2019, or maybe it was 2020. Either way, he is set to get paid $21 million by the Yankees, so they're trying to scramble and put a team together that is cost effective. So they talked about trading for Francisco Lindor and trying to trade away Giancarlo Stanton's massive contract. Who is the one team that has been involved in these rumors? The Chicago Cubs. And they would get 3 All-Stars, maybe former All-Stars, but they would get Yu Darvish. I don't know how that would happen considering he almost just won the Cy Young. Jason Hayward, who had a great season in 2020, and then Craig Kimbrell, who has not been himself the last couple years. His final season in Boston, and then his first season and his second season with Chicago, not the best if we're talking about statistics, but he still has a chance to be 90% of Craig Kimbrell, and he would go to a team that I think really knows how to utilize their bullpen pitchers with Mariano Rivera, Aroldis Chapman, Andrew Miller, Zach Britton. It just seems like every single year the Yankees either have one dominant closer for a decade, or they just pick and choose a single dominant relief pitcher. I mean, David Robertson was supposed to be the next Mo. They got rid of him, then they got Britton, then they had Tommy Canley, then they had a couple different guys that were just money in regards to closing games and being a relief pitcher. So what do you make of this trade rumor? They would offload Giancarlo Stanton's contract because Jason Hayward is requiring a ton of money as well. And in return, they would get Yu Darvish, Jason Hayward, and Craig Kimbrell. This would allow the Cubs to get rid of a lot of money as well. I don't know how much overall, considering Stanton has that massive contract, but I think him and Hayward would kind of balance out, but then the Yankees would also have to take on Darvish and Kimbrell. Not really sure if it balances out 100%, but hey, that is the rumor for today. I want you all to let me know, do you think that Stanton is going to get traded? Because a lot of Yankees fans are saying, hey, home runs are cool, but we can't have a ton of right-handed strikeout kings, because that's what the Yankees do. They hit well against righties, but they also strike out a ton, and in the meantime, in between, they hit a home run every now and then. They want better defense, they want lefty bats, and that's exactly what you would get from Jason Hayward, and you would also get a starter to throw in with Garrett Cole and Luis Severino when he comes back, and then you would have Craig Kimbrell in the crop of Aroldis Chapman, Britton. I think Canley is going to be out for 2021, so they're looking for arms. I don't think that Jonathan Lasagna, I don't know how to say his last name. I'm not sure if he's going to be the real deal going forward, so they're trying everything to offload contracts, get players back in return, because Jacoby Ellsbury, the worst contract of all time, is still somewhat handcuffing them to a somewhat limited payroll. Even though they're the Yankees, it's just the landscape of the world with COVID and Corona. Everyone is trying to save a buck. But that's going to do it for today's video. There was so much that we talked about in a short amount of time. AJ Hinch, he signs a contract. He is going to manage the Detroit Tigers. I love that. I don't like AJ Hinch, but his baseball mind is on point. I think that he's going to be great for the city of Detroit. Same with Alex Cora going back to the city of Boston. Yes, they're cheaters. Yes, they were allowed back in. So, of course, we have to talk about the players that were banished and not allowed in the Hall of Fame or even in the league because of what they did and cheated the game of baseball. Will Pete Rose ever be instated? I think that it's time. I think that he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you can't have Hinch and Cora making millions of dollars, but Pete Rose is on the sidelines, an outsider looking in. And then last but not least, Giancarlo Stanton to the Cubs in exchange for Darvish, Hayward, and Kimbrell. Honestly, if I was the Yankees, I would do that. I know he had a home run. We're talking about Stanton. I know he had a home run in 5 or 6 straight playoff games. The man has prodigious power, but he's injured a lot. He strikes out a lot. And as we saw, he didn't help you win a series. So maybe Darvish, Hayward, and Kimbrell could do that for you. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe out there. And remember, like I said, I ain't never seen 2 pretty best friends. All right, I'm never going to say that again.
Is that championship tainted?
It's a fair question. And I think everyone's going to have to draw their own conclusion. It's a fair question, and people are going to have to draw their own conclusions. Unfortunately, we opened that door as a group, and that question may never be answered. We may never know.
They're a lot better than last year. Their attention to detail is phenomenal. I was joking with somebody that their biggest free agent acquisition is Carlos Beltran.